So, looks like we've got some folks curious about these reports swirling around Elon Musk and Vladimir Putin.
Yeah,
This Wall Street Journal article claims they've been chatting regularly over the last 2 years or so.
quite a bit of chatter.
Yeah, and it's a tangled web for sure. Could have some serious consequences.
Uh-huh.
So, let's dive in and try to make sense of it all, shall we?
Let's do it. What really grabs you right off the bat is all the secrecy around these supposed talks.
Right?
No official word from either side, just whispers from sources who want to stay anonymous.
Yeah.
And yet, here we have the NASA administrator calling for a full-blown investigation. Definitely ups the ante.
No kidding. It makes you wonder what's really going on behind closed doors. I mean, at first glance, you might think, oh, this is all business.
Sure.
But dig a little deeper, and as the article points out, SpaceX is actually eating into Russia's space program. They're losing launch contracts left and right, and U.S. companies are finally ditching those Russian engines.
Yeah,
That's a major hit to their space ambitions.
absolutely. Which leads to the big question, right? If it's not just about profits, what's the real motivation here? Some people are tossing around this idea that Musk sees himself as some kind of freelance diplomat.
Oh, interesting.
He's always got these grand visions for the future. Maybe he thinks he can use his clout to, I don't know, de-escalate the whole Ukraine mess.
Musk as a peacemaker?
Yeah,
That's bold, to say the least. Especially given, governments usually handle these things.
exactly. And that brings us to a really crucial point.
Okay.
The relationship between Musk and the U.S. government,
Yep.
it's evolving.
It's definitely shifting, yeah.
For years, it was this win-win partnership. SpaceX was making America the top dog in space. Tesla was pushing the whole electric car revolution forward. Everyone was benefiting.
Classic American success story, right? Innovation, free market, entrepreneur nation, everybody wins. But this article points out a change, especially after Musk bought Twitter and started, well, getting cozy with conservative politics.
Yeah.
Some call it Musk going a MAGA. Maybe you could break down that term for our listeners and explain how people are reacting to it.
Okay, so MAG stands for Make America Great Again. It was Donald Trump's slogan, and it's become a rallying cry for a certain segment of American conservatives.
Right.
Now, Musk siding with this ideology, it's created a real stir. Some folks are cheering him on, see him as a disruptor, shaking things up.
Yeah.
But others are worried. They're not comfortable with his growing influence. They see potential conflicts of interest.
Definitely a divisive move. And the article suggests this shift in political allegiance could have real consequences for SpaceX, particularly when it comes to their dealings with the U.S. government.
Yeah.
What kind of fallout are we talking about here?
Well, some are calling for Musk to lose his security clearance.
Oh, wow.
They say these alleged conversations with Putin create a conflict of interest.
I see.
There's even talk of favoring SpaceX's competitors for those sensitive government contracts.
Oh.
And in a more extreme scenario, though unlikely, some are whispering about pressuring Musk to, divest from SpaceX completely, meaning he'd have to sell off his ownership.
That's serious stuff. What's fueling these concerns?
Well, there's this growing unease about the concentration of power in the hands of people like Musk. And the worry that their personal actions could impact national security, in these crucial industries. Space exploration especially is tied to national pride, military strength, scientific advancement. Any sign of weakness or compromise there, and alarm bells start ringing.
It's a tricky situation.
Yeah.
But let's get back to those conversations with Putin, see if we can unpack the motivations a bit more.
Okay.
Beyond the peacemaker angle or the self-serving power broker narrative, are there other ways to interpret what's going on?
That's where things get really interesting. The article focuses on those dominant narratives, but there are other perspectives worth considering.
Like what?
Some geopolitical experts suggest, and this is just a theory, that Musk might be trying to secure access to Russian resources or their technology,
Oh, interesting.
particularly for SpaceX. Russia, even with its setbacks, still has a lot of know-how when it comes to space tech.
That's true. Access to those resources would be a huge advantage for SpaceX, especially with their Mars ambitions.
Exactly. And this motive wouldn't necessarily contradict his desire to help in Ukraine. Maybe he sees those goals as connected, believes a stronger relationship with Russia could help achieve both.
So it's this complex mix of ambition, diplomacy, and maybe a dash of idealism. It seems like Musk might be playing a multi-level game here.
Right, and it gets even more complicated when you factor in the upcoming U.S. presidential election. Depending on who wins, the whole landscape could change drastically, impacting Musk's position and the future of SpaceX.
This already precarious situation gets even more unpredictable with the election looming. The article lays out some possible scenarios based on whether Trump or Harris wins. Could you walk us through those?
Sure, a Trump victory could embolden Musk.
Okay.
He might have more freedom to maneuver, solidify his position, but a Harris win? That's a different ballgame.
And how might Musk react in that scenario?
That's the million-dollar question. If he stays aligned with Trump and his rhetoric, a Harris administration might clamp down, leading to more friction and scrutiny. On the other hand, he could try to smooth things over, mend some fences.
Lots to think about.
Yeah, it's a real crossroads, and the impact on SpaceX could be huge. Like we talked about, they're deeply embedded in the U.S. space program.
Right.
The article even mentions how NASA's whole lunar program is riding on the success of SpaceX's Starship.
Oh, wow.
Trying to replace them would be a massive undertaking, incredibly disruptive and expensive.
So even with all these worries about Musk, the government can't just cut ties with SpaceX.
It's a tangled web. They depend on SpaceX for cost-effective launches, and that cutting-edge tech like reusable rockets. Plus, they've finally broken free from those Russian engines, thanks to SpaceX. It's a real balancing act, managing national security concerns while keeping those space exploration goals on track.
So Musk's put the government in a tough spot.
Yeah.
They need SpaceX, but they're also nervous about the potential risks with him at the helm.
Exactly, and this whole thing's even more intense because of what space exploration actually represents.
How so?
It's about national pride, military power, pushing the boundaries of science.
Yeah.
Any hint of vulnerability, any compromise, it triggers a huge reaction.
Makes sense. So how do you see this playing out? What are the possible scenarios here?
It's tough to say for sure, especially with Musk. He's always got you guessing. But one outcome could be that Musk sees the writing on the wall, realizes how serious this is, and tries to smooth things over. Publicly clarifies his intentions, reassures the government that he's got America's best interests at heart, maybe even distances himself a bit from those controversial political figures.
So basically, a strategic retreat to calm the waters.
Exactly. That could potentially stabilize things, let SpaceX continue playing its crucial role, and avoid further fallout.
But what if he digs in his heels? What if he refuses to back down or even ramps up the controversial behavior?
That's a more worrisome path. It could trigger a whole chain of consequences. The government might be forced to take stronger action, maybe start favoring SpaceX's rivals for those big contracts, increase scrutiny on his businesses, even take legal action if they have to.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster. Could really hurt SpaceX and hold back U.S. space exploration.
Absolutely. And we have to remember, this isn't just about government contracts. Musk's actions could also turn the public against him, scare off investors. If his reputation gets too tarnished, it could lead to boycotts, people pulling their money out, and ultimately his companies could become financially unstable.
That's a crucial point. So while Musk's ambition and his willingness to break the mold, they've certainly driven his success, now they seem to be a major risk factor.
For sure. And this whole situation highlights a bigger trend, how technology, politics, and personal beliefs are all colliding.
Interesting.
Individuals like Musk, they've got so much influence in these new fields like space travel and AI. They're not just playing in the business world anymore.
Right.
Their actions, their words, they carry weight on the global stage. It blurs the lines between private enterprise and national interests.
That's a pretty unsettling development. We're seeing a new breed of power player emerge, people whose influence goes beyond traditional boundaries, and their decisions could shape the future in profound ways.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it underscores the need for us to be more aware, to think critically about all this. We can't just sit back and watch. We need to engage, understand the stakes, and consider the consequences of unchecked power, not just in tech, but everywhere.
Well said.
Thanks.
But let's not get too philosophical here. Let's bring it back to Elon Musk and those alleged conversations with Putin.
Okay.
What have we learned from all this? What are the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, a few things stand out. First, this situation shows just how complicated power dynamics are in the 21st century. People with vast wealth and technological clout, they now hold a ton of influence on the global stage, and it challenges traditional ideas about how governments and countries interact.
It's like watching a real-life game of chess, with Musk making moves that could shake up the whole board.
Exactly. And second, it highlights the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of making sure personal actions align with the greater good. Musk's drive to achieve his goals, while impressive, It's creating ripples that go far beyond the walls of his companies.
A classic case of actions having unintended consequences.
For sure. And lastly, this situation reminds us that the line between personal beliefs and professional behavior is getting blurry. In this age of instant communication, every word, every tweet can have serious consequences.
It's a cautionary tale for anyone in the public eye, especially those with power and influence.
Absolutely. And for everyone else, it's a call to think critically, make informed choices, and be active participants in shaping the future we want.
So to sum it all up, this Musk-Putin saga is more than just a juicy news story. It's a reflection of how power is changing, the complexities of ambition, and how interconnected our world is in the digital age.
It is. And while the final chapter hasn't been written yet, one thing's for sure, this story is going to keep unfolding for a long time to come.
We've certainly been unraveling a pretty intricate story here, but as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to bring it back to you, our listener.
Absolutely. What insights can you take away from this look at Elon Musk, his alleged ties to Putin, and what it all means for SpaceX and the U.S. space program?
This whole situation is kind of a paradox, would you say?
Huh.
Musk, this champion of technology and progress, now finds himself caught up in this web of geopolitical intrigue and these potential conflicts of interest.
It's a fascinating contrast.
Yeah.
On one hand, we have this visionary entrepreneur pushing the boundaries of innovation, leading us towards a multi-planetary future.
Right.
But on the other, we see the possible downsides of unchecked power, the risks that come with blurring the lines between personal ambition and national interests.
And it raises a big question for all of us.
Mm.
Are we as a society ready to deal with this new landscape where individuals have so much influence, where the choices of one person, even someone as brilliant as Musk, can have ripple effects across entire industries, governments, even the global balance of power?
It's a challenge we can't afford to ignore.
For sure.
We need to be more aware,
Yeah.
have these thoughtful discussions, and demand transparency and accountability from those in power. The future of space exploration, really the future of our world, depends on our ability to navigate these complexities wisely.
So what can we learn from this deep dive into the world of Elon Musk and these alleged conversations with Putin? What's the big takeaway for you, our listener?
I think the most important insight is that we live in a time of incredible technological change, where the actions of individuals can have worldwide consequences. This brings huge opportunities, but also potential risks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to all of us to engage with these developments, think critically, and shape the future we want to see.
We hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of this complicated situation, and more importantly, that it makes you think about the bigger implications of technology power and the choices we make in an increasingly connected world.
Remember, the future isn't set in stone.
Right.
It's shaped by the actions we take today. So
Yeah.
stay informed, stay engaged, and be a part of the conversation.